Belize is a Caribbean country on the northeastern coast of Central America. It has an abundance of birds, other terrestrial and marine species, and a wide diversity of ecosystems. We spent 4 nights near the Guatamalan border, at Chan Chich Lodge, and 5 nights at Crooked Tree, in the northern central lowlands. We landed in Belize City and then had to find our way to Gallon Jug and the lodge, which is situated in the midst of a private nature reserve. Most people choose to fly in a small plane. We opted to drive and needed a letter of introduction to get us past the gate guards. The drive was worth it for the views and the birds, and we knew we were getting close when ocellated turkeys started to appear at the side of the road. A little taste of home were these white-tailed deer. We also saw the much rarer red brocket deer but failed with photos. Chan Chich must be one of the most unusual places we have ever stayed. The lodge is actually built in the plaza of a largely unexcavated Maya city. In many ways, this has helped to preserve the site since it had previously been prone to robbery by latter-day tomb raiders. The accommodation was in individual thatched cabins, surrounded by high grassy slopes which were the Maya structures. We arrived in late afternoon, just in time to settle into our thatched palace and explore the huge bathroom, with bathrobes and slippers supplied. Then we were off to the main lodge for supper, taken with bats flying around our heads and some falling out of the thatch and hitting the deck with a thud. Unfortunately, we neglected to ID them. The next morning dawned bright and early with a cacophony of bird noises just outside. Crested guans were very vocal. The call is described as like a powerful steam whistle. Breakfast was taken on the same deck as supper, but without bats. It seemed that we were currently the only guests, perhaps not surprising as June is definitely not high season. The plan for the morning was to take a walk along the access road towards a suspension bridge that spanned Chan Chich Creek. There was a reason. A lovely Katinga was reputed to frequent a tree near the bridge. That was definitely a want-to-see bird. On the way down the road we met a whole troop of Central American spider monkeys, also known as Jeffrey's spider monkey. They were great fun to watch as they made their way through the trees, but we were very careful not to upset them. We had been warned that, if they got miffed, they were likely to pelt us with poo. Thankfully we avoided the excrement. They must have taken a shine to us. Jeffrey's spider monkey is considered endangered since, despite being widespread in Central America, deforestation has threatened its habitats. We were delighted to find white-collared mannequins in the foliage near the bridge. The males of these birds make a loud wing-snapping noise as they display for females. At the bridge we looked for that lovely Katinga, but failed to find it. We later found out that the tree had to be fruiting to stand a good chance of a sighting. Never mind, we were pleased with what we were finding: plum-bear's kite, king vulture, and a northern royal flycatcher that just would not come out and say hello. At least the social flycatcher wasn't shy. Back to the lodge and a closer look at those ocellated turkeys. They were wandering all over the grounds. Named for the eye-shaped spots on the tail feathers, and blessed with a face that only a mother could love, the rest of the bird is beautifully plumaged, and they are not at all shy, at least in this location. This bird is near threatened, due to the local people taking it as part of their diet. Speaking of not shy, the most common hummingbird seen was the feisty rufous-tailed. We had a hummer feeder on our porch which was instantly adopted by a rufous-tailed hummingbird who proceeded to repel all boarders. During our stay at Chan Chich, we were to find many other hummingbird species. Long-billed and stripe-throated hermits, scalar-breasted hummingbird, white-bellied emerald, azure-crowned hummingbird, and wedge-tailed saberwing all put in appearances, but none were as obvious or accommodating as the rufous-tailed hummingbird. In the grounds we also came across black-cheeked woodpeckers. One of the most obvious bird species in the grounds were the Montezuma or pendulus. Evidence of a busy breeding season was provided by the cluster of pendulous nests, whilst the birds themselves had been very busy calling in the early morning. The gurgling call, often accompanied by the male bird swaying forward on the perch until almost hanging upside down, was a constant accompaniment to any time spent at the lodge. The lodge was well supplied with trails, passing through the dense rainforest to more open areas near the streams, the Chan Chich Creek and Little Chan Chich Creek. It was hot, over 30 degrees Celsius, but it didn't stop the birding. A fine grey hawk showed well, as did a gartered trogon. At the time this was known as violaceous trogon, but it has since been reclassified. At least with trogons. Once you have found a bird, you generally do get a good look as they sit so very still on the perch. One benefit of driving to the lodge rather than taking the little plane was that we could easily jump in the car to explore the local area around Gallon Jug. The unusual name was bestowed by British settlers who found the remains of a Spanish camp, including several ceramic gallon jugs. The drive included more open landscapes, fields with cattle and shade-grown coffee. We had been drinking gallon jug-grown coffee during our stay, and it was indeed excellent. It was on these drives that we found great curassows on the roadside verges, although they were never close enough for a photo. Chan Chich was one of the larger Maya sites locally and was probably a major player in the economic and political life of the area. It is composed of 2 main plazas, a number of smaller courtyards and a ball court. There is evidence of occupation dating back to 700 BCE. The site appears to have been abandoned around 850 to 900 CE. We were exploring around a site called the King's Tomb, partially excavated, when we heard the spider monkeys getting agitated. We didn't think it was because of us. Then a sudden movement behind and a sudden eruption from the vegetation heralded a puma, heading away as fast as it could. We do like cats, even big ones, but maybe not quite so close as this one was. Once the heart rates had returned to normal, we were able to enjoy watching this pale-billed woodpecker excavating a tree trunk. The pale-billed woodpecker is widespread from Mexico to Panama in a variety of forested areas containing large mature trees, a habitat that has become challenged by logging. It excavates in dead wood and under the bark of mature trees, looking for the larvae of wood-boring beetles and termites. It will also take some small fruits. This one was certainly keeping busy knocking lumps of bark off this tree. Out and about again, we enjoyed finding red-lord parrot, or Amazon, and, down by the coffee bushes, morellet seed-eaters perching on the fence wires. Morellet seed-eater was previously known as white-collared seed-eater, considered conspecific with the cinnamon-rumped seed-eater of western Mexico, before it was discovered that the two are not that closely related and the species were split. That was good for us, as we have seen the Mexican species too. Morellets is found from Mexico to Panama, with a tiny outlying population near San Ignacio and Laredo in Texas. We have seen them there too, as well as in Mexico and Costa Rica. Fork-tailed flycatchers are always worth a second look. Back at our cabin, we paused to take a look at a little frog, perched sideways on our veranda railing. It really was tiny, maybe an inch long and very cute. It has since been identified as Mexican Smelisca, a tree frog, thanks to iNaturalist, which is a boon for every traveling wildlife lover. We were heading out for a night drive. We wanted night birds and, maybe, more big cats. Our night drive took us out on the access road and we did a circuit of the airstrip. Common poraki was quite common. Barn owls hunted the cropped grass and a snag at a distance had a northern potu. We were after Yucatan nightjar, no luck, but we did see a few Yucatan porwil. Cats were remarkable by their absence. On our last full day at the lodge, we recruited some assistance, in the form of Gilberto, the local bird guide. We wanted Toady Motmot, one of the lodge's signature birds, and we hadn't had a sniff of one yet. Time for the big guns. Gilberto showed the value of having local eyes and ears on the job. Calls and songs that we had not tracked down he gave a name to. Birds that we'd searched for, he turned up, if not with ease, then with enthusiasm. He was a joy to bird with, and showed us several nooks and crannies that we'd previously walked right past. They were definitely not on the lodge trail map. Some of the skulking little birds we managed to catch up with included this northern chiffornis and a charming ruddy-tailed flycatcher. Unfortunately, they did tend to like hiding in the foliage, which did not help the photography and video efforts. At the time, this bird was more commonly called the thrush-like chiffornis, but has since been split into 5 species. This one is found from southeastern Mexico to western Colombia and Venezuela. We were lucky to see it. It is far more likely to be heard than seen due to its habit of perching quietly in dense vegetation before gliding away like a ghost. And here was another tiny inconspicuous bird that likes to lurk in the depths of humid lowland tropical forests. Ruddy-tailed flycatchers can be difficult to see unless they decide to sally forth in search of an insect snack, so we were pleased with this sighting. The problem of the invisible toady motmot lingered, and we tried several of Gilberto's regular spots without success. Almost as a last-ditch attempt, we tried another secret trail, which wasn't a trail at all really, more an animal track through the jungle. When we did find the motmot, it was only a few feet away and we had to step back. It was doing a sub-song, completely unfazed by our being there, its tail doing a pendulum swing, side to side, as it scanned the area for food. It was still there as we crept away and our walk with Gilberto was done. It was a great experience and we are very grateful for his skill and tenacity. We suppose that the tiny size of this motmot, only 6 to 7 inch in length, and its habit of sitting quietly in dense undergrowth, make it so very difficult to find. It certainly enhanced the feeling of seeing something very special and remains a treasured memory for us. That tail just never stopped. Near to the lodge, and on the Gallon Jug estate, were a couple of lakes. Water is always attractive to birds, and to birders, so we decided to take a ride to visit one of them, Laguna Verde. We made sure to check for that lovely Caatinga on the way past the suspension bridge, but no luck. This spring-fed lake was available for swimming and canoeing, and was furnished with a causeway and deck, sitting out in the lake. Mangrove swallows abounded, sitting on the railings of the causeway. We took seats on the deck, watching swallow-tailed kite, our first blue-grey tanagers of the trip, tropical gnatcatcher, and northern beardless tyrannulet. Ruddy crakes called from the margins but just would not show. Back to the lodge for our last night, including another night drive, taken this time with company. Another couple, birders, had arrived at the lodge via the little plane, so we were no longer ensconced in lonely isolation at dinner. Since we had the car and they did not, they were grateful for the chance of a night drive. It wasn't as good as previously. The usual Porak keys were present and the barn owl was back, but no Potu or Poor Will. We did see a cat though, which was probably another puma. The next day we had a couple of hours on site, picking up a few more birds for the trip, such as buff-throated foliage gleaner, wedge-tailed saberwing, and a handsome grey hawk. When we finally left, we saw a nice grey fox along the road to our first stop, Laguna Seca, just a few miles away and still on the Galanjug estate. This lake was well vegetated, being covered with beautiful dot-leaf water lily. A northern jacana was making the most of the lily pads. It was time for us to go. We had 5 hours of interesting roads to traverse on the way to our next location, the appropriately named Bird's Eye Lodge at Crooked Tree. Still, it was hard to say goodbye to Chan Chich. The level of luxury and sheer thrill of living in a palm-thatched palace in the middle of an unexcavated Maya plaza, in the depths of a private rainforest estate, is something we would not forget. The birding had been superb too, and that little toady mot-mot remains a highlight. Not to mention the close encounter of the furry kind. If you like stories about birds and birding, and lots of pictures of wildlife, why not check out the many other videos on our channel? For more information on this trip to Northern Belize, we have a travelogue, available as ebook or paperback, from Amazon. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you don't want to miss part 2, our stay at Crooked Tree, please like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.